So that's how I think it should have been done. They should have used the spore drive to jump somewhere far away, then they disable the drive to power the crystal, but then Leland's ship show up anyway because he also has the spore drive, and then they would have to fight to destroy it. I think the reason they didn't do that is that the writers simply don't realize that the Federation is limited to a small portion of the galaxy, and they think that the normal warp drive is almost as fast as the spore drive, because remember, even early in the season they showed all the 7 signals appearing all over the galaxy, and they even said they were spread out over 30,000 light years, and Pike never had the intention to use the spore drive originally. He was planning to simply use the normal warp engines to reach all of those places. He only agreed to use the spore jump to reach that one that is 50,000 light years away, and they were all over the galaxy. And yet later we find out they actually all appear right next to Federation space. One of them appeared in the Klingon space. One of them was with Saru's planet, which couldn't be so far away since they had contact with Saru. So all the signals actually appeared very close to Federation space. So I guess the writers simply think that the Federation is all over the galaxy. They don't realize that the Federation is limited to a small part of it. And it also reminds me of the stuff they did with the Mirror Universe in Season 1, in which they said that the Terran Empire in the Mirror Universe controls the entire galaxy, which didn't make sense because they had the same kind of warp engines, so how would they even be able to reach the entire galaxy, let alone conquer the entire galaxy? So I think the writers simply don't know the scales of everything in Star Trek. They don't realize that the Federation is only in a small part of the galaxy and not the entire galaxy. It doesn't really make sense, and Spock also drew those exact same locations, and yet later they said they don't know the locations, and also all those religious symbolism. I actually kind of like all of that, so I don't have a problem with that. Again, if they only explained it properly earlier in the season, then it could have been great, actually, if not for all these plot holes. For example, Michael's mom told her that she saw her throughout her life in various places, so I assume she appeared in the Red Angel suit, and yet no one could ever see her except for Spock. She could only communicate with Spock for some reason. So all of that is a bit fishy. We can kind of understand that in this scene in which Michael goes to the past and she sees stuff on the bridge, or maybe it's her memory, it's very unclear, but I guess she's able to kind of look at various places and times in the past without anyone seeing her. So that's kind of like in that interstellar scene of that guy seeing his daughter in the past, and yet his daughter couldn't see him. She could only see those little signs. So I guess it's a similar kind of idea. So Michael's mom could time travel to the past in that kind of way of no one else able to see her, and only she's able to see everything that's happening in the past. And we see that a little bit in this scene with Michael going to the past. She can see stuff happening on the bridge. So I assume she's kind of out of phase, that she can see stuff happening and no one can see her, and only in very specific places they can see her as the Red Angel, and even then not fully, because remember when Pike came back to save Michael, he didn't see the Red Angel from the other side, even though Michael could see the Red Angel. So I assume it's all kind of out of phase and that you have to be in a certain frequency or whatever. So I wish it would have been explained more properly. And also I covered in previous videos how it was kind of a plot hole of how did Spock know about the 7 signals before they actually appeared, and it's not because of the mind meld he had with the Red Angel, which was Michael's mother, because she didn't know about the red signals because it was Michael who created them. And so how could Spock know about the signals before they appeared? It was never really explained. Maybe they could do that in the next season. Also, how did the Federation saw all 7 signals before they actually appeared, one after the other in those places Michael left them? So how could they see all 7 in before that? Maybe we can say because they are made out of tachyons, and tachyon particles, they kind of move backwards in time, so maybe that's why they saw all 7 signals even before they actually appeared. So maybe it was all kind of a side effect from how the tachyons work, and maybe because Spock mind melded with the Red Angel in the past, he kind of became attuned to the frequency of those tachyons, and the closer he came in time to when these signals are supposed to appear, he could actually see them before they appear because of his telepathy. So we can invent all kinds of excuses like that to try to explain that. But this is another example of something that should have been done better to close this plot hole. They could have simply showed in that scene of Michael time traveling, show a scene of her appearing to Spock 2 months before the events of season 2, and giving him that vision of the red signals, and then appearing at the start of season 2 and creating all 7 signals throughout the galaxy, and then disappearing again. and maybe even show her disabling the Enterprise. Maybe she deliberately sabotaged their holographic system so that they cannot be manipulated by Control, because Control was using the holograms to fool the rest of Starfleet to do its bidding, and so maybe Michael deliberately did that damage to the Enterprise so that the Enterprise cannot be fooled, because it had to help them out in that final fight. So that would actually make sense. So why didn't they do that? So regarding the space battle itself, why didn't Leland just ram a few of his ships into the Enterprise? I mean, he couldn't destroy the Discovery because he wanted that sphere data, so fine, but why not ram a few of his ships with warp speed into the Enterprise and to destroy it if it was so important to get the sphere data? And then he comes all alone aboard the Discovery. He doesn't bring any robots, he doesn't get any other people assimilated with the nanoprobes. And then another silly thing that happens is that they previously said they cannot remove the sphere data from the ship. Fine. But then we have a scene of Georgiou showing that little device that Leland once gave her, and she implies that she actually did transfer all the sphere data, and that's why he cannot find it. And that's why he has to chase her around the ship. And so why didn't she do that earlier when they were discussing how to destroy the sphere data and wanted to blow up the whole ship? Why didn't she do that then? Why didn't she transfer all that data back then? So that's another major plot hole. I guess maybe she just lied to Leland. Maybe she didn't really transfer that data. She only told him she did that so that he would chase her. But it was all a lie, and for some reason he believed her because he didn't know they cannot delete the data. So we can make up excuses like that to try to explain all of this. So I say that the data didn't really get transferred. It was all a trick to try to get Leland. And then he chases her all throughout the ship apparently. So they start out from the bridge and end up in engineering in the spore drive room. So how exactly did they get there all the way there? Also, if they could easily replicate that Red Angel suit, and earlier they said that they can transfer the sphere data into the suit. So if that's the case, why couldn't they do it now if they have a new suit which they can easily replicate, even though it's such an advanced technology? So why couldn't they simply transfer the sphere data into that suit and that's it? So my excuse for that is that maybe that ability was something that Michael's mother added in the future with some technology she found in the future, and so they didn't actually have this ability in this episode. So that's my excuse for that. Even though that Red Angel suit that Michael wore apparently was able to do so many things, so she was able to appear all over the galaxy to create those signals. She was able to save Saru's people from the Baul by wiping out all their technology, which she couldn't do against the Section 31 ships for some reason. My excuse for that is that the Baul technology is less protected from that kind of stuff, and Section 31 is more protected. That's why she couldn't do that against those ships. And another problem in that scene in which the Admiral sacrificed herself, how exactly did she know about Pike's fate? Because Pike earlier said that he is not going to talk about that with anyone else. He said what I saw was for my eyes only, and yet in the dialogue between him and the Admiral, she apparently knew about his vision. So did he tell her about that between episodes, because we never actually saw that? So that was kind of a plot hole, but I guess maybe he told her that in between episodes because, she's a psychologist, so maybe he did want to talk about that with someone and told her all about that, and that's why she knew what he's talking about when he said this cannot possibly go off if he's there. And maybe his presence behind that door was actually what saved the ship, because maybe he has that magical plot armor around him because his fate is sealed and so he cannot die, and so maybe him standing at the door is the reason that door remained intact. So maybe it was actually Pike himself who protected that door by his very presence. So that's kind of funny. The time crystals are basically magic, so they are the reason for all of that. Also, when I did that schematic of the time traveling, someone told me in the comments it doesn't really make sense how Michael jumped in time to create those signals which lured the Discovery to all those places in order to achieve everything they needed, but the knowledge to do all of that had to come from somewhere originally. So Michael only knew to do all those things because they already happened for her, so that's how she knew where to create those signals. But how did all of this come to be in the first place? And someone had to kind of design all of that plan to make it all work together, and so who exactly invented all of that? It couldn't be Michael herself, because she only did all of that because she knew about it already. Some might say it's kind of a predestinational time loop, it's all meant to happen, but it's not exactly fits how this time traveling works in all of this, because they talk about alternate timelines and all of that. So someone had to design that knowingly. Maybe it was Michael's mother, because she said she did 800 time jumps, and yet she said she doesn't know about the red signals. And so did she lie to them that she didn't know about that? Was she the one who actually designed everything that happened from the future? And she didn't know about the red signals up until her time crystal was destroyed, and she couldn't time travel after that. So that means she never knew about the red signals, and so she couldn't have been the one to design all of that elaborate plan. Someone with intelligence had to design all of that. It couldn't be just time itself. And so my excuse for that is that because all this time traveling is only made possible with the time crystals, and it's been said in season 1 that the time crystals must have been built by some kind of fifth dimensional beings, and so that means someone with intelligence that exists beyond linear time, so sort of like the prophets in Deep Space Nine, who also created those orbs to help guide the Bajorans. And those orbs were kind of similar to the time crystals here, that they could also give you visions of the future and stuff like that. So maybe those beings that created the time crystals, maybe they are the ones who did all of that from beyond time, so they kind of set all the pieces in the right places so that the corporeal humans will be able to figure out how to save themselves. Sort of like Interstellar also, it was also mentioned in that movie that some kind of higher dimensional beings actually set everything in motion to help save humanity. So we can use that kind of an excuse to say that some kind of beings who created the time crystals, they were the ones who also put all those pieces in place from some higher dimension where they could see all of time happening simultaneously, so they are able to manipulate all these events, and that can explain where that knowledge came from of how to exactly to set all the signals in order to make all this elaborate plan work. Another plot hole is that they said that the time crystal will burn out after she sends the Discovery into the future. She will not be able to time travel again, and yet she's able to send the final signal from the future, so that means she found another time crystal in the future. So I guess it can still be explained somehow in the next season, but it's really messy. Also, the short track dialogue doesn't really fit with what we saw, because in that short track the computer said that she was all alone for almost 1,000 years and she used most of that time to evolve herself. So does that mean there will be another time jump? Because the ship said that she was waiting for 1,000 years and using the time to evolve herself. So that doesn't fit with the idea of the time jump, because if they simply jump to the future, then she wasn't all alone for 1,000 years, she wasn't using that time to evolve herself, so it doesn't really fit the dialogue of the short track we saw, the short track Calypso, in which the entire crew is gone, and also there's a whole bunch of dust in the ship, so it looks as if the ship has been abandoned for a long time. So I guess there will have to be another time jump in the future, so they'll get even farther away into the future at some point. So I guess it remains to be seen how they'll fix that issue in season 3. So I think I covered all the problems. I tried to come up with excuses for some of them, but some of them I don't think can be explained away so easily. Some of them are still very problematic, especially the whole thing with the time suit. How could they easily replicate such advanced technology? It was hard enough to buy that Michael's mother built all of that in the past, such advanced technology, because they said they were exploring the idea of technologies coming from the future, so maybe they gathered all kinds of technologies that were actually from the future, that were left in the past. I'm kind of fine with that. But then they could easily replicate that time suit on Discovery with just the specs. So they don't have any special materials, they don't have anything from the future, they only have the time crystal. But how does that explain building such an advanced suit, which is also able to withstand all the explosions she suffers in space and all of that? So is the time crystal doing everything? So the suit itself is barely, they even said, I think, that the suit is useless without the crystal. So basically the crystal is doing everything, so it's kind of silly in my opinion. But maybe we can buy the idea that the suit is simply channeling all the energies from the crystal, and without the crystal it wouldn't be able to do anything at all. Even though you would think with some alternate energy source he would still be able to do a bunch of stuff that the suit is able to do. Maybe this can explain the boots that Spock used in Star Trek V. He had those special boots that he could fly with, and it was never shown again in any other Star Trek movie. Maybe he took that from those specs that are supposed to be classified. Maybe he built himself a pair of boots made from the same specs as the Red Angel suit, and he used that for that one time for some reason, and then destroyed it, I guess, because no one else was able to use that, because maybe he found some kind of power source that is able to make it work like the Red Angel suit, and then it ran out, and that's why it was so unique. So that's kind of funny how we can tie that silly scene with the boots with the Red Angel. That's actually a neat idea. But really, the whole thing with the suit being so advanced is one of the most ridiculous things. And also the Klingons have a whole bunch of those time crystals, so they could technically conquer the whole universe with no problems, because if these crystals are like the Infinity Stones, if you only build a suit able to channel all its energy, then you would be able to do so many amazing things, so the Klingons should be able to take over the galaxy easily. You know, the only thing I like about the crystals being in Klingon space is that maybe it can explain all those Klingons with time traveling technologies that we heard about in TNG and Voyager. I remember Alexander found someone who helped him go back in time, who I kind of assumed was a Klingon, and Janeway bought a time machine from a Klingon. So maybe all those Klingons with time machines, they were simply using those crystals that the Klingons had, and that's why they were able to do that, because otherwise it was kind of silly, because the Klingons were never shown to be that bright with science, and so many Klingons having time traveling abilities was a bit silly. But maybe it was all thanks to them having so many time crystals. So anyway, I've covered pretty much everything. Maybe I'll do specific videos on specific topics to talk about them in more details. And I will make a whole video with my predictions on Season 3 of Discovery. So that's it for now. Let me know what you think in the comments below and we can discuss it. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.